Okay, this is step one of assembling a Halloween skull's skull. It starts with the back of the skull, as you can see here, and there are other objects that you're going to need. You'll need the center rod. I have already assembled this with the coupler on the bottom. That's a 3/8 coupler, fits on a 3/8 bolt, or that is also the size of the rod that's in the Lucky Skeleton fourth quality skulls, or whatever quality you get. The rod that goes up the back is a 3/8 rod. So I've got that in there. This is the controller board. We're not going to need that right now. That'll come in later. But the other things that you need for the first step is one servo, the HS85MG. That is the jaw servo. We're going to be using that. You're also going to need one of the small 12-tooth gears that goes on top of that servo. You're going to need the 1/4 28 threaded nylon lock nut. I'm not really sure even what these are called, but this is what we use to put on the top of the rod end to hold it in place on the center shaft. And then there is the universal joint. That's going to go on top of the rod end. So first thing is to assemble the rod end. You got this piece here, the center rod with the rod end. The rod end will go on the top there. Then we're going to secure it in place with that spacer and controller there. And I'm just going to get it with a pair of pliers and crank it down just a little bit. I've already put some Loctite inside. When I threaded this inside of this rod, it'll come that way when you get the kit, and that keeps that from unscrewing itself during use. So now you got that. That's pretty tight. And what also helps to stop that from riding up is you put on the universal joint. The universal joint has a set screw in it. I might have to pull that out a little bit to get it done. So I'm going to need a small here we go, Allen wrench, and take that out. There it is. Okay, so that's nice and tight now, or it's fitting nice and tight. And I'm just going to tighten up that. After you've used the skull for a season or two, it might be good to get inside there and check out that set screw and make sure that it hasn't worked its way out and it's still tight. So that's your full rod assembly, center rod assembly. And what I'm going to do now is insert this into the back of the skull. So you can see this area right here, which is made to hold this rod end. And let's see the angle that I put it at. First, easiest way to get that in there is I'll lay it down like this, and then place the rod up inside and slide it in. Now that you have the rod end in place, we have to use our 1/4 28 nylon nut. Now it's going to be hard to see this. Let's see if we can get this. That's the back end of the rod end. And we're going to put this nut onto that. And I try and hold the skull, as you can see it in there. I'll try and hold the skull so that that's pointing straight up. And then I'll balance that nut on the very top of it. If you see a quick edit in this video, it's because it took me more than a couple of tries. But no, I got it. Okay, so I spun it around. Now you will need a wrench to tighten that. And it's in the parts list. It's a small wrench because it has to fit inside of the skull. And I used the round end on here. And this is 7/16 wrench. You can only do it little bits at a time. You get it around there and you can make about 1/4 of a turn. Put it back in, another 1/4 of a turn until it's tightened down. Now you do have to be careful, as with tightening down anything in this skull. It is all 3D printed plastic, and anything that you tighten down too much can either strip out or crack the plastic. Of course, you don't want it to be loose. You got to find that that happy medium. So as you get it screwed down very close to tight, and there's still a little bit of play in it, then you just give it one or two tiny more tweaks. Now this nut in here is a nylon lock nut, so it's not going to back off on its own. That's why I chose it, because we can't really sock it down really tight. And I will show you an example here of what it looks like on the bottom of the skull, and this portion of the skull. If you do sock it down too tight, and this will crack and will become useless. So we don't want that. What we do want is to tighten it down enough so that there's no play in this piece, and it's in there very tight. It's right there, and I'm just going to give it just a little bit of an eighth of a turn more, and that's good. So it's tight, it's nice in there, and I haven't cracked anything. That's the only thing you're going to need that tool for. We have the jaw piece, and we still have the gear. So you've now created the center rod. I'm going to get out the right Allen wrench for that, and I will, I'm forgetting exactly what the size are on those two Allen wrenches, but in the editing of this video I will place their sizes on screen so you can see them. Now you can see that this moves in, this is the maximum that it can move in any direction, because that is an maximum motion available on the rod end that comes with it. So that's as much motion as you're going to get, and of course it can spin, so that's all your 3 axes right there. Now we're going to work on getting the jaw in place, and you've got one HS85MG servo. You can take out the package of parts, throw it away. You won't need them. However, if you're like me, and I did this until I started going through hundreds of servos, I would save the packets, because you never know. They're useful for other things, other servo projects. But you know, you're going to have 6 of them. I have hundreds of them, so I don't need that many. That's why I no longer save them. Now I'm going to grab a screwdriver here, a very tiny Phillips head, and I'm going to take off the servo horn it comes on these servos. And that is also not needed. Toss that away. That leaves me with a servo screw and this 12-tooth 32-pitch gear. I place that on here on the top of the skull. They are directional. They go on better one way than the other. They're a bit tapered, so they have a larger opening on one side. The other thing that we want to do is we want to try and get it in the right position. Now the servo's default position is all the way to one side, and that's when the jaw is closed. And I find that if we, and this one I didn't get it on quite right, there's a whole row of tiny teeth on the inside of what they call the spline, part of the servo that sticks up, that you attach things to. And that means that you can make several small adjustments to how the gear sits on here. And I like to put it on so that there is a tooth, one tooth, any of the teeth here, and that tooth is pointing directly to this corner of the servo. And that would give you the best shot right there. You can see it. That will give you the best shot of getting the jaw aligned correctly when we're all done. So you have to put it on the right way and look at it, and so that's pretty good. Now once that's in place, we don't screw it down with the screw right now, because it wouldn't help. The head of the screw would go right through the middle of the servo, and this could still come off. What stops it from coming off is the inside of this jaw piece. And you can, I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a gear-shaped cutout right in there. So you can see the shape of the gear, which fits right into that space. So this gear fit right in there. And then we put the screw through the jaw, and that's what holds it in place and prevents it from working its way out. But right now we've already got it aligned as close as we can. Hopefully that will be in there pretty good. Now we just place it within the skull, and it's going to go right in this section here. Of course, the gear is going to be out in the front, so we slide it up in, put the fork here where you drive the screw in on the front side, and on the inside of the skull there's another little ridge that the back fork sits on, and then we just twist it and snap it into place, just like that. Now, you can see on the inside, you can see the back side of that servo is leaning up against a wall that's inside the skull there, and the front side is ready to put a screw in. So we have that right there, and I'm going to use a 632 screw, and the one that I'm going to use for that is 3/8 long, 3/8 of an inch long, 632. So we'll get the Phillips head screwdriver out there. It can be a full size number 2 Phillips. Whoops. Put that on the screwdriver. Put that right there. Trying to hold it and still let you see what's going on. All right, so that's getting in there a little bit right now. So now I just put that screw in there. Screw that down. And this is one of the cases where if you over tighten it, you can strip it. So you want to just very carefully keep turning it until it gives you enough resistance that you can tell it's not going to go easily. And if you turn it anymore, you're probably going to strip the plastic. I made it 3/8 long so you get a lot of threads gripping something. Because if you only have a few threads, if it were thin, one, it could snap off, and two, it would be much easier to strip it. The more threads that are covered with the plastic, the better it is, and the less likely it is to strip. The back end of the screw sticks out just a tiny bit right there, almost flush. I don't think they make a screw that would perfectly fit into that space, so that's what we have. And there's our gear there. Now, all we have left to do with this piece here slides into a hole right there. There, that's in. And then the gear part fits right over the gear, and you got to find the right spot, and there it is. Now, with any luck, that will be pretty close. I'm going to open it first so that I can put the front on, and then when I close it, going to be hard to tell. It's going to be really, really close right there. The teeth do touch each other when I force it up, but at rest they're just apart. So it looks like that is aligned exactly the way I want it to be. So that should be fine. So it's at this point, now that the skull, and I can just lay it down here to make it a little bit easier. Now that that's in place, I get my small Phillips head screwdriver again, and now I'm going to screw that jaw in place. And I think that's aligned very well, so I won't have to do it later. That is pretty much everything to do with step 1. And step 2 will be taking some other parts that slide into the interior in the back and create your 3-axis motion for the skull. That'll be step 2, and that has a whole set of different things. You'll be using 3 of the servos that we have here. That would be both of your 225s and your 77B, your 225 BBs and your 77 BB servos. Those provide your motion for the 3-axis motion, which will all be in step 2, and we'll get right onto that soon. Thank you.